The sun was shining softly over the small ranch. Birds were flying low, and the sound of the wind gently touching the dry grass made everything feel peaceful. Tom, a tall and quiet man in his early 50s, sat on the old wooden porch of his house. His hat was tilted slightly down, blocking the sun from his eyes. He looked out at the fields that stretched far into the horizon. The ranch had been in his family for years, and every corner of it held a memory, but lately those memories felt heavy. Tom had lost his wife 5 years ago. She had been his best friend, his partner, the one who always made the house feel alive. Without her, the house was quiet, almost too quiet. The laughter that once filled the rooms had faded away. It was just him and his teenage daughter, Emily, now. She was 15, full of energy and so much like her mother. She was the reason he woke up early every morning to feed the horses, fix the fences, and keep the ranch running. But no matter how hard he tried to stay busy, the evenings always came back to the same silence. Most days, Tom didn't talk much. He liked being around the animals because they didn't need many words. The horses knew his voice, the cows followed his steps, and the old dog Max lay at his feet like a loyal friend. But sometimes when the sky turned orange and the world got quiet, Tom felt the weight of loneliness pressing against his chest. Emily, on the other hand, was full of life. She had friends at school, loved reading, and enjoyed playing with the ranch animals. She often tried to make her dad smile. Sometimes she told funny stories from school. Sometimes she forced him to listen to music she liked. Tom always smiled at her, but deep down she knew her father was lonely. One Wednesday evening, while they were having dinner at the small wooden table, Emily spoke up. "Dad," she said, her voice soft but excited, "do you remember the community fundraiser they hold every year at the town hall?" Tom nodded slowly, cutting his bread. "Yeah, the one with all the fancy cakes and auctions?" "Yes," she said with a grin. "This year they're doing something new. A date for a day auction. It's like people can bid on someone, and then they get to spend the day together. It's all for charity. For the town library." Tom raised his eyebrows. "Sounds interesting." Emily leaned forward. "I think you should do it." Tom almost choked on his drink. "Me? No way." "Come on," she said, laughing. "It's not a real date. It's just one day. People are doing it for fun. Mr. Jenkins is signing up. And he's 72. Tom shook his head. "Sweetheart, I'm not exactly the kind of guy people bid for at fancy auctions." Emily rolled her eyes. "That's not true. You're kind. You're funny when you try to be, and you have the best horses in town. Someone will bid for you. And even if they don't, it'll be fun." Tom sighed. "Emily?" She gave him that look. The same determined look her mother used to give him when she wanted something. "Please, Dad, just this once. Do something for yourself." Tom didn't like being in the center of attention. He was the kind of man who preferred quiet corners and calm conversations. But when Emily looked at him like that, it was hard to say no. She had grown up too fast. He didn't want her to carry his sadness like a shadow. "All right," he said finally. "If it makes you happy." Emily jumped up and hugged him tightly. "It's going to be fun, Dad, you'll see." The next few days passed quickly. The town was buzzing with excitement about the event. Posters were everywhere, and people were talking about it at the grocery store, at the feed shop, and even at the post office. Everyone in town knew everyone. It was that kind of place, small, friendly, and a little nosy. Tom tried not to think too much about it. He focused on his work around the ranch. He repaired the barn door that had been creaking, cleaned the saddles, and fed the horses early in the morning. But no matter how busy he got, the thought of standing in front of the whole town at the auction made him nervous. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Sarah was finishing her lesson plans for the week. She was a young elementary school teacher who had moved to the town only a few months ago. Teaching was her dream. She loved working with kids, helping them learn and seeing their eyes light up when they understood something new. Sarah had met Emily in her class the first week she arrived. Emily was polite, bright, and had a kind heart. She often stayed after class to help put books away or clean the board. Sarah admired her quiet strength. She had heard from other teachers that Emily's father raised her alone after her mother passed. Sarah didn't know Tom personally, but she respected him from afar for how well he was raising his daughter. One afternoon, Sarah's friend Lisa, who also taught at the school, told her about the charity auction. "You should come," Lisa said. "It's fun and the money goes to the library." Sarah laughed. I don't know anyone here well enough to bid on them. Lisa nudged her playfully. That's the fun part. You might meet someone new. Plus, it's for a good cause. Sarah wasn't looking for anything romantic. She had moved here to focus on teaching and building a simple life. But something inside her said, why not? She had spent so many weekends alone in her little house reading or grading papers. Maybe going to the fundraiser would be a nice change. The night of the fundraiser finally arrived. The town hall was decorated with strings of warm lights. The air smelled of homemade pie, cinnamon, and fresh bread. Long tables were covered with desserts, and children were running around with red ribbons tied to their hair. Everyone seemed happy, dressed in their best clothes. Tom stood near the door wearing his cleanest shirt and jeans. He had even polished his old boots. He wasn't a fancy man, but tonight he wanted to look presentable. Emily had made him promise not to escape through the back door, and she was keeping a close eye on him like a little general. Don't be nervous, she whispered. Smiling, I'm not nervous, Tom lied. She raised an eyebrow. You're holding your hat too tight. He looked down and laughed softly. She was right. At the other end of the hall, Sarah arrived with Lisa. She wore a simple blue dress and a soft scarf. She didn't like too much attention, but tonight she felt surprisingly confident. She greeted a few parents and waved to some of her students who giggled and pointed at her. Then she saw Tom. She didn't know him personally, but she recognized him immediately. He looked exactly like Emily. Kind eyes, quiet smile, a little shy. Sarah didn't know why, but she felt a warmth in her chest. As the auction began, the host called names one by one. People laughed, cheered, and clapped. Everyone took it lightly, which made Tom relax a little. Mr. Jenkins, the 72-year-old man, got the biggest applause when someone jokingly bid $5 for him. Then Tom's name was called. He walked to the small stage slowly, feeling his heart pound in his chest. He kept his hands in his pockets to hide how nervous he was. Ladies and gentlemen, the host said with a big smile, here we have Tom, the hard-working rancher who makes the best apple pie in town. Who wants to spend a day at the ranch with him? The crowd laughed and clapped. Tom felt his cheeks warm. For a few seconds, no one raised their hand. Tom thought, this is it. Nobody's going to bid. That's fine. At least I tried. Then from the middle of the crowd, a soft voice said, $20. Everyone turned. It was Sarah. Her blue dress shined under the warm lights. She smiled shyly as everyone cheered. Tom blinked. He didn't expect this. He barely knew her, but he had seen her at school events with Emily. He knew she was kind. The idea of spending the day with someone like her didn't scare him as much as he thought. In fact, for the first time in years, he felt something warm in his chest. Sold, the host said, laughing. Tom and Sarah, you've got yourself a day. The room filled with happy cheers. Emily clapped louder than anyone, her face glowing with excitement. She couldn't believe her favorite teacher had just bid for her dad. Tom stepped down from the stage, a little embarrassed but smiling. He walked toward Sarah, unsure of what to say. Thank you, he whispered awkwardly. Sarah smiled kindly. It's for the library, she said softly. And I think it'll be fun. Tom laughed nervously, rubbing the back of his neck. He hadn't laughed like that in a long time. Emily came running toward them. Dad, Miss Sarah. This is so cool, she said, almost jumping with excitement. Tom looked at his daughter's bright face. For a moment, the loneliness in his heart faded just a little. Sarah looked at Emily with the same warm smile she gave her in class. I guess we'll see each other outside of school now, she said. Emily grinned. I like that. As the night went on, people danced, shared food, and laughed together. Tom stood outside the town hall for a moment, looking at the stars above. He felt the cool air on his face and realized something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. He didn't know what would happen next. He didn't expect anything big. But for the first time in a long time, he felt a quiet excitement about tomorrow. Inside, Sarah laughed with Lisa, sneaking a quick glance at Tom. She didn't fully understand why she bid on him. It wasn't planned. But when she saw his shy smile on stage, something told her this wasn't just another charity event. And so, with a single bid and a shy smile, something gentle began that night, a story neither of them saw coming. The morning after the fundraiser, the ranch looked brighter than usual. Sunlight slid across the open fields, making the tall grass shine like gold. Tom woke up earlier than usual, his heart beating a little faster than it had in years. He wasn't sure if it was nerves or excitement, maybe a little of both. Today wasn't just another day of fixing fences or feeding animals. Today, someone was coming to spend the day with him. And not just anyone, Sarah, his daughter's teacher, the woman in the blue dress who had smiled so kindly at him. He stood in front of the mirror in his small bedroom, holding 2 shirts in his hands. He had never thought choosing a shirt would feel so complicated. Max, his old dog, sat at the door wagging his tail as if telling him to hurry up. "You're no help," Tom muttered, chuckling. He finally picked the light blue shirt. It was simple, clean, and it reminded him of calm skies. He combed his hair, something he usually didn't bother too much with, and cleaned his boots until they shined. Outside, Emily was already waiting by the porch. She was way more excited than he was. "Dad, you actually look good," she said with a grin. Tom laughed softly. "Well, that's a surprise." "No, I mean it," she said seriously. "Miss Sarah will like it." Tom felt a warmth in his cheeks. He hadn't felt shy like this in years. "It's not like that," he said. Emily raised her eyebrows. "Sure, Dad." A few minutes later, a small white car came down the dusty road that led to the ranch. The wind pushed her scarf gently as Sarah stepped out. She wore a soft cream sweater and jeans. She looked simple, but there was something graceful about the way she smiled. Tom walked down the steps slowly. He wasn't used to moments like this. "Good morning," Sarah said, holding a small basket in her hands. "I brought something sweet." "I hope you like cookies," he smiled nervously. "Good morning. I like cookies." Emily ran to greet her favorite teacher, Miss Sarah. "You came." Sarah laughed softly. "Of course I did." I can't say no to Emily. For the first few minutes, everything felt a little awkward. Tom didn't know what to say. Sarah didn't want to seem too formal. But slowly, as they walked around the ranch, the air became lighter. Sarah loved nature. She asked about the horses, the barn, and the way the ranch worked. Tom found himself talking more than usual, explaining little things, how to feed the horses, how to check the fences, and how the barn doors creaked when it rained. Sarah listened with real interest. She didn't pretend. She asked gentle questions, and every time she laughed, something inside Tom melted a little more. They reached the back of the ranch where the fields stretched endlessly. A soft wind passed through the tall grass. Tom stood there with his hands in his pockets, looking out at the land he had loved and cared for all his life. "It's beautiful here," Sarah whispered. Tom nodded. "Yeah, it's quiet. Sometimes too quiet." She turned to him slowly. "I can see why Emily loves it so much." Her words made him smile. As the day went on, they shared lunch at a wooden table near the barn. Emily had set it up with flowers she picked from the garden. Sarah placed her cookies in the center, and they talked like they had known each other for a long time. Tom told her about how he met his late wife, how they built the ranch together, and how everything changed after she passed away. He spoke carefully, not wanting to bring down the mood, but Sarah listened with quiet respect. "I miss her every day," he admitted softly. "But Emily keeps me going." Sarah's eyes softened. "She's a wonderful girl, strong and kind. I see it every day at school." He looked at her with quiet surprise. "You really care about her?" Sarah smiled. "Of course I do. She's special." Tom didn't say it out loud, but he felt something warm in his chest. It wasn't just Sarah's kindness. It was the way she saw his daughter, the way she respected their little family. After lunch, Emily dragged Sarah toward the stables. "Come see Bella," she said excitedly, referring to her favorite horse. Sarah hesitated at first, but Tom reassured her with a gentle smile. "She's the sweetest horse here. Won't hurt a fly," Tom said. Sarah gently placed her hand on Bella's neck. The horse snorted softly, and Sarah laughed. It was a bright, soft laugh that filled the air like music. "See? She likes you," Tom said. They spent the next hour brushing Bella and feeding her apples. Tom found himself laughing more than he had in years. Sarah's laughter was contagious, and Emily's joy made everything brighter. Later in the afternoon, Tom took Sarah to a quiet spot near a small lake at the edge of the ranch. It was a hidden place only a few people knew about. The water sparkled under the sunlight. Dragonflies danced above the surface. This was her favorite place, Tom said quietly, looking at the water. Sarah didn't ask who he meant. She already knew. She used to sit here every evening, he continued. Said it felt like the world slowed down here. Sarah stood beside him, her hands folded gently in front of her. It does feel like that, she whispered. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence wasn't heavy. It was soft, almost peaceful. Tom felt a calmness he hadn't felt in years. You know, Sarah said after a while, sometimes we don't need to fix the quiet. Sometimes it's enough just to share it with someone. Tom looked at her slowly. She wasn't trying to fill the silence with meaningless words. She understood, and that understanding touched something deep inside him. As the sun began to set, the sky turned into a mix of orange, pink, and gold. Emily ran back from the stables to join them. She held 2 cups of lemonade she made earlier. I didn't forget you, she said, handing them the drinks with a big smile. The 3 of them sat near the lake, talking about simple things, books, school events, funny little stories. Tom didn't even realize how much time had passed. When it was finally time for Sarah to leave, Tom walked her to the car. Emily hugged her tightly, almost as if she didn't want her to go. Thank you for today, Sarah said softly. I really had a wonderful time. Tom nodded, his hands in his pockets again, but this time he wasn't hiding nerves. Me too, he admitted. More than I thought I would. She laughed gently. I'm glad. There was a small pause. Not the awkward kind, the kind that feels like something is beginning. Maybe we can do this again sometime, she said carefully. Tom felt his heart skip a beat. Yeah, he said slowly. I'd like that. As she drove away, Emily turned to her father with the biggest grin on her face. You like her, she said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Tom shook his head, trying not to smile. She's nice, Emily laughed. Dad, that's the first time I've seen you smile like that in years. He didn't deny it. That night, after Emily went to bed, Tom sat on the porch again. But the silence felt different this time. The stars above were the same, the wind was the same, the fields were the same, but he wasn't. Something inside him had shifted. He wasn't thinking about the years he had lost. He was thinking about the day he had just lived. He thought about Sarah's gentle smile, her kindness, the way she fit so easily into their world. He thought about how Emily laughed all day without holding back. For the first time in a long time, the future didn't feel so empty. Meanwhile, in her little house near town, Sarah sat by the window with a warm cup of tea. She wasn't sure what she expected from that charity auction. But she didn't expect this feeling. She had seen strength in Tom's eyes, the kind that comes from love and loss, and she had seen how much he adored his daughter. She smiled quietly to herself. Neither of them knew what tomorrow would bring. They didn't make promises or big plans, but something real had started, something gentle and warm like sunlight after a long winter. The next week, Sarah began visiting the ranch more often, sometimes to help Emily with her homework, sometimes just to walk around the fields. Tom found himself looking forward to those visits more than he wanted to admit. He didn't know where this new chapter would lead. But he knew one thing for sure. Life had given him a second chance at happiness in the most unexpected way. And it had started with a single question at a fundraiser. Can you be my date for one day? He smiled at the memory. He had said yes without knowing it would change everything.